What's good? All right, look, I know I said I was going to make a video about, where I think the market's going. I'm also going to give you a couple of stocks to watch this week. I think if you really just kind of hear what I'm saying, you know what I mean, just take in the wisdom, it's going to make a huge difference. All right, so the first thing I want to say is like I was on the charts. Oh, this is what happened. So in the group, right? Zay came in the group and he posted a picture of Shali, right? And he was like, I guess it was a picture of her like before she was getting ready to go out, and she was, she was looking at the charts or whatever. So he jumped in the group and was just like, "Yo, how often do y'all look at the charts? Over the weekend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I look at that joint like at least 3 times, right?" So I want to pose the question, y'all, how many times y'all look at the charts? Like for everybody that's like, like new and trying to, get in their groove and trading, like how often are you looking at the charts? I've been trading for years and I still, over the weekend, I'm looking at it at least 3 times. Cause like, there's several things I'm looking for, right? There was some other people that chimed in that was like, they looking at it a few times a day. Some people was like, they look at it one time, right? So, let me know in the comments how many times you look at the charts during the weekend. But anyway, that was dropped in the group, right? And it got me really thinking just about this particular idea. So when I'm on the charts, right, and the reason I spend so much time on the charts is because the charts actually teach me a lot about just life in general, right? If we're trading something that is based on like human psychology, man, this thing has to ultimately provide something else to us because we're in the minds of people, right? I think the charts are more of like a microcosm of life. Some people might be like, "Sell, you getting too deep." Maybe, but if you really think about just like what a lot of patterns mean, what a lot of moves on a chart means, it is very, 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 very closely related to life itself, right? So this is the reason why you say like why certain traders have like traders intuition. You can kind of feel where the market is going. This is a real thing. Now I'm gonna give you a prime example of how the charts behave exactly like life. I got tons of them, right? I sprinkle them out through my videos, but this particular one, I'm telling you, like when you hear this, you're gonna be like, "Oh damn, I see it now." Right? And then it's going to start to get you to understand like how to move accordingly, right? So everybody been like, "Yo, what's going on? Like, should we start, swinging, put? Should we start swinging? Are we going to continue to the upside?" These are, questions I've been getting a lot in the group. And what I'm telling people and what I'm telling you is that you got to understand the charts, just like makeup, like what is the chart like really made up of? It's a bunch of psychology. Where does our psychology come from? Our psychology comes from our experiences. So when I'm looking at the chart and I'm trying to determine like which direction it's going in, especially during a time like this where it's been flip flop and we got, Donald Trump saying stuff every day. We have leaders of this world saying things every day because they seem to be a little bit more consumed with their public persona. So they just be saying whatever. And a lot of times this has a severe impact on the market, right? There's still technicals and patterns that do supersede that. But in the short term, we're seeing a lot of the short term patterns get blown up because of this rhythm, right? So I think that as a whole, the market is kind of like shifting a little bit, which is why you got to stay in the charts every day. But one thing that does remain true is that it does reflect life. Yeah, life is changing too. But just really understand that it reflects life. Here's an example, right? So they always say like when you're on a road to, getting to that next level, you gotta put the work in and you gotta, enjoy the journey, right? And I know me in my life personally, I never fully understood what that meant, and it took some time, and I started to understand it. I started to see it. I started to fall on my face, started to make mistakes. And I really, truly, on a cellular level, now understand what it means, right? It's the same thing on the chart. You got to enjoy the journey, meaning that you are firm in where you're going. You're putting in the work consistently, and you're going at a pace that leaves no sort of stone unturned. It doesn't leave, leaks in the pipe. It doesn't leave holes, like in your path. So this way, you're on a solid foundation and you are getting there at the proper pace, even though sometimes that pace can seem super slow, right? What we do oftentimes in life is we try to skip steps. We try to go from here to all the way over here because we see somebody over there doing it, right? Now, what is the exact reflection of that on the charts is gaps, right? It's gaps. So when you see a gap on the chart, what it's trying to do is go somewhere and be something that it's not in the moment, right? It's trying to do too much. And this is where a lot of people get caught up. The way that you can determine where the direction of the market is going is based on the amount of steps that stock has skipped. The same way in real life, if you skip a bunch of steps, oh yeah, you may get somewhere very far, but the destination you won't reach before having to come back and correct those things, right? So if I start a business and I don't like pay my taxes, for like 2 years, or I don't do, all these things, but I'm making a lot of money and I'm going here and I'm going there. Well, eventually I'm going to have to come back and pay those taxes, right? If I didn't get my my business name like trademarked, or I didn't get the LLC established, like eventually I'm going to have to come back and do that, right? And a lot of times what happens is when you do skip steps, it's not you voluntarily coming back, it's you being forced, which means it's a lot more harsh, right? So let's take it back to the charts. You know the direction of a stock based on the amount of steps that it skipped, the amount of gaps that it has. If something has a tremendous amount of gaps, like say NVIDIA, there's no way that with that many gaps, it's going to go to the next level, and continue through it or stay there for a while without coming back and filling those gaps. Does that make sense? I want you to really get this, right? The way that you understand the direction that something is ultimately going next, especially like in the position that we're in now, is really paying attention to how it got there. Did it skip steps or did it enjoy the process? Ooh. Did the stock skip steps or did it enjoy the process? Again, enjoying the process is understanding what needs to be done, falling in love with the process, doing it at a pace that may seem slow, but it's firm, right? It's the right thing to do. It's going at the right pace. The valuation is where it should be. It's not overvalued. It's not trying to be something that it's not. It's going at that pace. So there's no gaps. There's no leaks in the pipe, right? And eventually it will get to that top, and eventually it will exceed that top. And yes, everything pulls back at some point, but it will have a much clearer direction if there's no, right? It had a longer trajectory, I should say, if there are no leaks in the pipe, because there's nothing that it has to come back and get, right? It's nothing that it has to come back and correct. So when I'm thinking about, okay, we got all these gaps, right? All these gaps in some of these stocks that are up right now. They're also near all-time highs. I think that when they hit all-time highs, they're going to realize like they're not as tough as they think they are, and they're going to have to come back and fix all the things that they skipped. When you start to see a stock creeping up and then creeping up and then creeping up, and then over time, you're like, oh man, you check back on that stock, you're like, damn, it's a lot higher than what I thought it was. It's not because it kept skipping steps. It's because it was gradually getting there and doing what it was supposed to do, right? So you'll see that, this is what makes a lot of people, abandon options and go to investing, is because you start to realize that like the gradual growth is the true growth, right? Now there is gradual growth in options as well, but you have to understand that there's going to be a lot of times where that stock skips steps, right? So my prediction is that the market comes down. There's too many steps that the market has skipped, right? There's too many things that have not been, done correctly because we have so much news, right? And we're trying to make, sense of the news. We have so much that just feels off, right? Like people are in real life and living real life, and they know that things are not as sweet as they're being made out to be by the Fed. So, there's the truth is always going to it's always going to reveal itself. That value of that company is always going to be achieved at some point, right? Even if you get away with it for a while, at some point it's going to have to come back and make up for what it did. So I just want you to keep that in mind. All right. Do not forget that. Now I'm going to jump into a couple of stocks that, I did mention one of them in the video, but I'm also going to show you another stock that I think is going to do, pretty decent this week. And I'm going to just kind of walk you through what I think is going to happen. So let me actually pull this up now. All right. Yeah. So I hope you caught what I was putting down, right? Like stocks are, they're just like real life, right? You can't skip steps or it's going to be a massive pullback. The bigger the step that you skip, the bigger the pullback. All right. So right here, I got Palantir. Now I want you to understand something about Palantir, right? Palantir is a company that has been doing really, really well. And if you understand how to value stocks, you'll realize that it could be a little overvalued, right? It's made new all-time highs right here, as you can see, right about what is this? Let me move my phone. My bad. Let's see, all-time highs, 127.72, right? Now, there is a gap here to fill right around here, 96, which I mentioned. A stock wants to usually come down and correct the mistake that they made, right? So this gapped up. It's not too big of a gap, but it will get corrected. So like you'll see right here, this huge gap right here got corrected pretty immediately, right? It was maybe a week and a half later, it came back and fully corrected that. So this small gap is like, all right, well, it may take a little bit longer because, as you can see, it's still a gradual process up here, but it gapped down heavy right here and then went back up to fill it. So these gaps are typically getting filled, I say 90% of the time on Palantir. Now, right here, what we have is called a bullish Harami. Now, there's a couple of ways to look at this because the bullish Harami is what bullish, right? It's when you get a red candle and then you get a small green candle inside of that red candle showing that there's some buying pressure, from the final day, and then that next day you usually get a pop to the upside. So this Harami formed fully Friday. So on Monday or Tuesday we could possibly get a pop. However, if you're looking at it from the perspective of this uptrend, it could be taking on the actions of a bearish Harami because, again, positioning is important when we're talking about patterns. So this Harami being at the top of a uptrend could be meaning that it wants to, to come down, right? So here's two things that could happen. Next week we could open up and just slide down and then work our way down and fill that gap. Or what could happen is we could blast off, which I think is more likely from the Harami. We blast off, create new all-time highs, and maybe make another all-time high, another new all-time high. And this could be happening at the same time the SPY is doing that. And all of a sudden, we have people thinking that, okay, the bull market is in full swing, and we are going, much higher, much higher, much higher. And then there's the rug pull. Because here's what I noticed about Palantir. Palantir doesn't spend a whole lot of time in oversold levels, but it will hang out in overbought levels, right? Look at how long this is up here in severely overbought territory. Then it comes down. Then it goes up in severely overbought territory. Then it comes down. So right here, it's right about in an average part of the RSI. So showing how many times it's been overbought recently, right? Because of press hype and all this stuff. We got this new stuff about the surveillance with Palantir that has a lot of people, concern, but it could also cause like a bullish push if, the CEO comes out and corrects it or reassures the investors. So we could possibly be going back into oversold territory from this bullish Harami and spending some time there. That I think that would put us, somewhere like here, like this would stretch out a little bit. The top Bollinger Band would stretch out a little bit, so we will be right at the top Bollinger Band at oversold levels and ready to come down. And I think that will be the start of not just coming and filling the gap, but going even further, possibly, possibly the beginning of a bearish market, right? I think that there's just a few things that need to happen. I have a totally separate video for that to push us into that bearish market. But this week I will be watching Palantir to see what it does. Either way, whether it goes up or down from the bullish Harami, or if it takes on the life of a bearish Harami, it's still going to be some nice action. So I'm definitely looking to day trade this. If you want more details, we are doing 7 days for free in our trading group, Prosperity Collective. So, if you haven't been getting the results you want, I would highly recommend it. We get tons of results, just like you see right here. Okay. So that's Palantir. Then let's see, what did I say? I had two for you. So NVIDIA is the other, right? So, or NVIDIA. I always say NVIDIA, but NVIDIA, yeah, it looks like NVIDIA is being exhausted. It's at oversold levels. It's wicked at the same level 2 to 3 times at the top of the Bollinger Band. Everything about this says it's coming down. Again, remember I said skipping steps, right? NVIDIA has just lost its identity and done so many things out of character, skipped so many steps, and now it has to come back and pay for what it did, right? So we got a gap right here. We got a gap right here. We got a gap right here. It got 4 gaps to fill. Now, if somebody thinks that NVIDIA is just going to take off and completely run, they are sadly mistaken, right? NVIDIA is coming right back down to size. We're talking about seeing it below 100 again before we see any sort of, move higher than that. Now, what could also happen, right? I'm not saying it's not going to go up at all. Is what it could do is come and actually reach this final target of like 153. And the reason I say that is because that was the original target for the breakout that it had. If anybody's been paying attention to NVIDIA, you know that there was, a falling wedge that it broke out of, and the top of that falling wedge was the 153.16. So it may come up here and flirt with that again. It may even go a little bit higher than that, but don't expect it to go too much higher before the rug pull brings it down to fill these gaps, right? Again, when something is in a true trend, a true direction, right, we're going to see very minimal gaps because it's going to be doing so in a firm way, showing that it is in love with the process. It wants to go in this direction for an extended period of time. But like I said, when you start seeing those skip steps, those gaps, right, it's trying to be something that it's not. It's overvalued. It's going to come back and fill those gaps. I hope this has been helpful to you. It's only, my goal to make sure that you become a better trader, because I know what it's like to not have, somebody that's just like, look, this is what it is, without, trying to, sell you a $10,000 course or whatever. I do have a group that costs $40 a month, but even with that, we're the cheapest in the game. And it's, and it's not like, you're getting less value. You're getting, real value from profitable traders. I traded 96%. Go ask any of your favorite traders. I don't care how many fucking followers they have. Did they trade 96% in the month of May? And they're going to tell you no. With an average, not just win rate of 96%, but an average profit of 29%. So I don't think you're going to find somebody that can do that. And, we're doing it in the Prosperity Collective. So head on over. Again, 7 days to try it on, right? You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take, all the people who, leave testimonials and show their profits word for it, but you can come and take your own word for it by testing us out for 7 days for free. And if you don't like it or agree or think that we like that, then, you can go about your way. No love lost, no risk to you. All right. I want y'all to be successful traders so that you can live the life that you desire, whatever that means. Don't let me tell you what it is. Don't let anybody try to tell you what it is. But you owe it to yourself to find a way to create some sort of wealth so that you can move throughout this world the way that you want to move, right? There's creators. I'm a creative myself. I have also have a watch company, right? I do so many things, but it's trading that's giving me the freedom to be able to move and make decisions in the way that feel the most connected to who I am. So I want that for you. So that's what I'm doing this for. All right. Y'all check out the Prosperity Collective. The link is in the description below. It's always love over here. Have a good one. Peace.